was the kind of thing you hear about in ghost stories. It's a kind of coincidence that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. A package, waiting for me, in a place no one should have known I was going. The road is a lonely place, and for a trucker like me, that loneliness gets amplified 1,000 times. You spend your life in a box on wheels, the endless hum of the highway your only companion, but every so often, you have to stop. I had a run from Phoenix to Boise, and a blizzard rolling in over the mountains meant I had to pull over for the night in some forgotten town called Twin Falls, Idaho. It was barely even a town, just a few gas stations and a motel that looked like it had been here since the dawn of time. The motel was called the Desert Oasis, a name that was, at best, a cruel joke. The neon sign was missing half its letters, flickering a sickly pink and yellow. The O pulsed on and off, making the whole thing look less like Oasis and more like Oasis. The lobby smelled of stale cigarette smoke and bleach, and the woman at the counter gave me my key without even looking up. Room 114. Walking down the exterior corridor. The wind howled around the corners of the building, rattling the loose planks of wood. The air was frigid, biting at my exposed skin. I fumbled with the key, finally getting the ancient lock to click open. The room was exactly what you'd expect. A single stained bed. A television bolted to the wall that probably only got one channel, and a faint, musty smell that clung to everything. I dropped my duffel bag on the floor, kicked off my boots, and just wanted to crash. But that's when I saw it. Sitting on the small, scratched-up nightstand next to the bed was a box. Not a shipping box, but a plain brown cardboard box, the kind you'd get from a moving company. It was old and covered in a fine layer of dust, as if it had been sitting there for years. The hotel clerk hadn't said anything about a package. No one ever sends me anything here. It had no address, no name, just a simple white envelope taped to the top. I reached for it, my fingers tracing the outline of the envelope. I was hesitant, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside the envelope was a single folded piece of paper. The note was written in a shaky, almost childlike scrawl. The words sent a cold spike of ice straight into my heart. I knew you were coming. My mind raced. How could anyone have known? I hadn't booked this motel in advance. I had only decided to stop here an hour ago, when the blizzard hit. I looked around the room, a wave of paranoia washing over me. The small window had a heavy, yellowed curtain over it, but I could still see the faint reflection of the parking lot outside. I quickly pulled the curtain aside, peering out into the darkness. There was nothing. Just my rig, a few other forgotten cars, and the endless blowing snow. My heart hammered against my ribs. I turned back to the box, a feeling of deep dread settling in my gut. I tried to convince myself it was a joke, a bizarre mix-up. But a gut feeling I've learned to trust after years on the road told me something was terribly wrong. I carefully peeled back the tape, my hands trembling slightly. The box creaked open, and the smell that wafted out was a mix of old paper and something else. Something sickly sweet and a little metallic. I swallowed hard, shining my phone's flashlight inside. My breath hitched. Inside the box were two things. The first was a small, crudely carved wooden figurine. It was an uncanny, vaguely humanoid shape, with two tiny pebbles for eyes. I felt a chill just looking at it. But it was the second thing that made me gasp. Beneath the figurine, carefully folded, was a piece of clothing. I pulled it out, and the horror of what it was slammed into me. It was a faded gray t-shirt, and on the front was a logo I hadn't seen in years. It was the logo for the trucking company I had worked for right out of high school, the one I had quit after only a month. The company had gone under a long time ago. I stared at the shirt, my mind reeling. How was this possible? How could this shirt, from a company that no longer existed, be in a box in this forgotten motel room? And then I noticed the small, faded stain on the collar. A small, dark red splotch that looked like dried blood. A cold, heavy feeling of being watched descended upon me. I suddenly felt like I wasn't alone. I was no longer just a tired trucker. I was a target. My eyes darted to the window, then to the door. The sound of the wind outside seemed to take on a different tone, a sort of low moan that sounded almost like a whisper. I don't know where the box came from, or what the person who left it for me wanted, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I had to get out of there. I grabbed my boots, my duffel bag, and the keys to my truck. I left the box on the nightstand, right where I had found it. As I opened the door to leave, the wind howled with a sound like a guttural laugh. I didn't look back. I just ran. I ran down the corridor, the flickering OSSA sign casting long, dancing shadows on the ground. I ran to my truck, my heart pounding in my ears. I pulled out of the parking lot, tires crunching on the packed snow, and didn't stop until I saw the sunrise over the horizon, painting the world in colors that felt safe and warm. But I still have the image of that small, carved figurine and the stained t-shirt seared into my memory, and I still sometimes wonder who knew I was coming. Because no matter how far I drive, I can't shake the feeling that the open road isn't as lonely as I once thought, and somewhere out there a watcher is still waiting for me.